A new report shows how President Joe Biden's brother James has long profited from the Biden name. The FBI catching one of his deals on tape. The Washington Post reports that Mississippi lawyer Richard Scruggs paid $100,000 to James Biden's consulting firm in 1998. Scruggs was trying to get Senate support for tobacco legislation. Scruggs now admits he saw then-Senator Biden's support as key to passing that legislation. And he also said he probably would not have hired James Biden, and this is a quote, if he wasn't the senator's brother. No, really. James Biden was not implicated in any wrongdoing in the case. House Oversight Chair James Comer with this on the president's brother.
We're communicating with his attorney. We expect to see him in very soon. I'm going to hold off criticism of the president's brother. Obviously he has due process, and we have heard from his attorney. We're trying to make that work, and I feel like that'll happen soon.
This new report could make waves in the GOP impeachment inquiry. The House Oversight Committee has already issued subpoenas for James Biden and his wife to testify. A new Fox News poll finds nearly half of all Americans say the Biden impeachment inquiry is legitimate. That same poll shows Americans are also concerned about the Biden's business dealings. Most are saying President Biden did something either illegally or unethically related to Hunter Biden's business deal. So the brother, the son, the president's former press secretary, Jen Psaki, offered some Hunter Biden advice. This is good.
If you're sitting in the White House right now, you're like, please, Hunter Biden, we know your dad loves you. Please stop talking in public. This is not helpful to any of them for him to be out there.
Matt Whitaker, former acting attorney general. I do want to just get to this real quickly. Hunter Biden is now facing up to 17 years in prison if convicted on federal tax crimes charges, and it turns out he's not the only Biden with tax trouble. Ashley Biden, President Biden's daughter, owes $5,000 in income taxes beginning in 2015, according to a recent tax lien docket first obtained by Fox News. So does any of this play in an inquiry?
I think it all does, because all this money was moving through these LLCs and shells, and it was, going to members of the family to support them, But, I think the most frustrating thing as I've thought about this entire case are twofold. One is this clearly, now that we have this James Biden story, he was a lobbyist, and he was obviously had access to his brother as senator for 40 plus years and is ultimately vice president. And he was exploiting that, and people would come to him for that access. I think the second thing, though, is, 2014 and 2015, the years that Hunter Biden had the most tax liability and failed to report or filed false tax returns, were allowed to expire by the Department of Justice. And having been a U.S. attorney for 5.5 years, I know what it's like to have someone up against a statute of limitations. And to me, that should have motivated the charges, not allowed them to expire and fall off the table.
Yeah, everybody was talking about that over the summer. I asked James Comer, I said, Chairman, you're running out of time on these things, and you can't stop that clock. Right. I do want to get to this. It was some news that broke while I was away on a divine assignment. That news for a later time, but I have been gone for a bit, and I'm back. And while I was gone, this happened. The federal judge oversaw Donald Trump's 2020 election, or who's overseeing it, has temporarily paused all procedural deadlines while appeals over whether Trump has immunity, which plays out. That could lead to his March 2024 trial date being pushed back. What does all of this mean, big picture, for the former president running for the seat?
Well, a lot of it means, first of all, these were novel legal theories to start with that the special counsel has charged the president with. And so you would expect these interlocutory appeals before that are going to decide whether the case can even be brought. I think appeal directly to the Supreme Court is a very aggressive move, and it looks like the special counsel is playing politics, trying to get this in before the election.
If they move that date, that March trial date, and they get too close to the end of the primary season, what does that mean for the president? Could they have to say, well, look, we can't go forward now. It's too close to an election.
Yeah, there are unwritten policies at DOJ that say within a certain window that essentially you can't bring charges or cases are kind of paused. I think the special counsel, it seems to me, with this interlocutory appeal directly to the Supreme Court of this ruling, ultimately does slide the date and it is going to start, gumming up the election. And
we'll have that conversation, hopefully, as a nation.
Right, and I think the American people, people should decide this instead of having the courts or this is a D.C. jury, which is going to be 90% against the president. And remember, the Constitution wants a jury of your peers.
Yeah, I love you. You bring all that inside stuff, but the bottom line, we both said it. This should be up to the people. After a certain point, we'll see if it plays out that way. All right, a sex tape scandal is rocking Congress. A staffer for Democratic Senator Ben Carden was fired after a video surfaced apparently showing him having sex in a Senate hearing room. The video was reportedly filmed in the famous Hart Senate Office Building Room 216. That room is used for U.S. Supreme Court confirmation hearings and was the site of the 9/11 Commission hearings. Legal experts say there could be criminal consequences. Jonathan Turley writes this: the question is whether this unofficial use would constitute trespass or whether this is in public in a locked committee room. The Capitol Police can argue that access to a staff position does not mean a license for entry for any purpose. Your take?
Yeah, this just shows a complete erosion of decorum, and that I think has been happening over the course of the last years and decades. And to me, there's just a loss of respect for our institutions, for what makes this country great. I think it has been inculcated in these recent generations, unfortunately, but a lot of it comes from the top. A lot of it, I think, has been the conduct of, whether it's the Senate or members of the House. I think there's a need, and not that this hasn't been in American history. We used to have people whack each other with canes on the floor of the House, and so it's not, if there's anything, I think this just needs to be a reminder of how we need to come back to a respect for our institutions, and those institutions need to earn that respect as well.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't think there aren't cameras around these days?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is something that I think should be condemned, but at the same time, I think it's a symptom of a bigger problem in our society.
Wow. Matt Whitaker, great to have you in
Thanks, Harris.
Focus.
Good
Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.